Hello, welcome back to Behind the Faders, the live sound channel. Today I just want to tell you a story. I thought that in between all that educational content, why not let you in on some of the things that happened to me over my career. And the title is not clickbait, but you need to know the story behind it to actually understand what happened. We had this festival coming up, big festival. It was not only James Brown, we had the Scorpions headlining one night, we had Manowar, we had Deep Purple, we had Emerson, Lake and Palmer, so it was a pretty big festival. The problem was that two companies were fighting over this festival. So the company that I usually worked for and another company. And the promoter apparently wasn't able to decide. So 3 days before the setup day, the festival went to the other company, then it came back, then it went over to the other company again. Negotiations until the very end. And finally, on the day before setup day, sometime in the afternoon, it was finally confirmed for us. The problem was, this was way too late. I mean, by the time it was confirmed, trucks should already have been on their way to the festival site, just like us, in order to start the setup the next morning. So, and also in those days, companies didn't have employees in the warehouse or anything. We were all freelancers and we were all somewhere else thinking we lost the festival anyway. We all got a phone call. We got asked if we were still willing to do it. And of course, we all said yes. You know, you would look really bad if you kind of said no in that situation. So the next morning, the morning of the setup day, we all gathered in the warehouse and started prepping. And like I said, it was a pretty big festival, so there was a lot of material to prep. My front of house setup was, I had a Midas XL3, 40 channels, and then a sidecar with another 16 channels, so 56. And I had, I think, four big side racks for effects and inserts and system controlling and all that. And since we were in a hurry, of course, I had no time for wiring up anything. So I just threw those devices into the racks, grabbed the desk, and threw it on the truck. So by lunchtime, the trucks were ready to leave. And it was not close. It was a few hundred miles away. So we left as well. We drove to that festival site. And that was a former American airbase. And another specialty of this festival was we had no hotel. We slept in the abandoned officers' quarters on camp beds. I was never in the army, so that was the only time in my life I had to sleep on a camp bed. But anyway, so we got there and we waited. And the trucks arrived around, let's say, 6 o'clock, something around there, for a setup for a festival starting the next day. And we started setting up. And one of the problems we had, and I can't remember why, and I don't want to make anything up, for some reason, it was not possible to hang any PA. Really, I try to remember why that was, I can't remember. So in the warehouse that I grabbed, at that time there was two PA systems. One was meant to be stacked and the other was meant to be flown. It might be that the PA that was meant to be flown got rented out on very short notice while we thought the festival was gone. I can't remember. So, but the PA guys had to stack a ton of boxes. I think it was like, I don't know, 5 high and 20 wide. So it looked ridiculous. And I had my big front of house and I had not wired up anything. So the setup, including line check and everything, lasted until like 3-ish in the morning. And the first sound check was scheduled for like 8:30 the next morning. And we all know after like a setup or like any kind of work, you can't just go straight to bed and be fast asleep in 5 minutes, especially not on a camp bed. You have to calm down. So that takes another 30 minutes. So I think I ended up with like 3 hours of sleep that night. So I got up the next morning and then this usual run-of-the-mill started, the festival day. Sound checks first and then the festival started. And in those days, it was very unusual that somebody brought his own front of house set. So everybody was using my desk. And the only break I had was when Emerson, Lake and Palmer played, because their sound engineer brought the first digital desks that I ever had seen in the wild. He brought two Yamaha O2Rs, which was kind of the first professional digital desk that Yamaha made. And he showed me the desks and went through all the layers and the moving faders and everything. And I thought, man, that stuff is never going to make it. Little did I know. But anyway, while they played, I had time to have some dinner and relax a little bit. Now, it was getting time for setting up James Brown. And you have to know that James Brown, as far as I know, over his entire career, never brought a sound engineer. And I was wondering why, but later I understood. And all I got from them for technical specs was just an input list. A long input list. There are two drummers, and there were a lot of channels, but no other specifications in there. No inserts, compressors, noise gates, any effect, at least recommendations or nothing. So while they were setting up, I was strolling through my arsenal of things, trying to work out what compressor to use where, and, thinking about effect setups. And all of a sudden, this big black man showed up at the front of house, and he said he's part of James Brown production. And of course, my first thought was, oh, now they still have a sound engineer. Okay. And he said, listen, I want you to switch off all these devices. Every compressor, every noise gate, every effect processor, everything. And I was like, okay. So I switched all the devices off. And he said, then, that's good. If I hear any kind of reverb or delay or any kind of effect during the show, I'm coming for you. And I was like, And he left. And also there was no sound check. All we did was an open line check, which means while they were kind of checking channels and dialing in the monitors, I was allowed to bring up all those signals in the system and listen to them and dial my EQ in and everything. And then James Brown came onto the stage and they started playing. So I tried to get a good balance between the two drummers and everything. And when I was done with that, I thought, okay, now I can start mixing. Finding out there was nothing to mix. That band mixed itself by the way they played perfectly. And that was the reason he never brought a sound engineer. If there was a solo, the arrangement made space for it. All that kind of thing. I was sitting there with literally nothing to do. And having been through that long day, the day before, and the short night, and I was really, really tired. And admittedly, I'm not a big fan of that kind of music. Sorry. So I sat in front of my console and I started to drift off, really I wasn't fast asleep, but I was well on the way. And I woke up by a saxophone solo that was played into the lead vocal mic. So the saxophone player came front of the stage and James just sticked his mic into the instrument. And I was like, wow! Needed a second to find out what was happening and then brought down that channel. But then I managed to stay fully awake for the rest of the show. So that was I fell asleep during James Brown story. Let me know if you like that kind of content or not. And again, comments and questions, please leave them in the comment section. If you have struggles with something or a very special set of questions, then consider booking yourself a coaching call. And if you haven't subscribed yet, still 50%, which is not a bad number really, but still 50% of the people watching our content are not subscribed. So please catch up on that. It's just a click and doesn't cost you anything. And I'll see you around. Bye-bye.